I paid for this seat. I didn't assume. I didn't sneak. I didn't try my luck. I scanned my boarding pass twice before I sat down. Row, seat letter, zone. Everything matched. My mother was already seated beside me. She's blind. She found her seat by trailing her fingers along the armrests, counting quietly under her breath. When she sat down, she smiled in that way that told me she felt safe. Settled. Done moving. I slid into my seat next to her. That's when someone stopped in the aisle. She didn't touch me, didn't shout, didn't raise her voice. She just stood there, blocking the narrow path between rows, holding a tablet close to her chest like it gave her authority. "Excuse me," she said. Her tone was polite. Practiced. The kind of politeness that isn't asking, it's informing. "You can't sit there." For a second, my brain rejected the sentence. It didn't fit the moment. People don't usually say things like that without explanation, without uncertainty, without at least checking first. I smiled. Instinctively. "Yes, I can," I said. "This is my seat." She didn't look at the seat number, didn't glance at the overhead bins, didn't check the row. She looked at my face. Then she said, "This section is reserved." Reserved. I waited. For the rest of the sentence. For clarification. It didn't come. Behind her, the aisle started filling up. The low, restless sound of boarding, bags rolling, people stopping too close, someone sighing loudly. My mother tilted her head toward my voice. "What's happening?" she asked. Her voice was calm, trusting, unbothered. That calm made my stomach tighten. "There's a small issue," the woman said, answering for me. "We're sorting it out." Sorting what? I held up my boarding pass. "This is my seat," I said again, slower now. Clearer. She finally glanced at the pass. Not carefully, not seriously, just long enough to dismiss it. "This seat doesn't belong to you," she said. Belong. That word landed heavy. Not wrong seat. Not mistake. Not let me double check. Belong. My mother reached for my arm. "Are we in the wrong place?" she asked quietly. I shook my head. "No," I said. "We're not." The woman exhaled sharply, like I was being difficult. "Sir," she said, louder now, "you're holding up boarding." The cabin changed. You can feel it when that happens. The moment strangers decide you're a problem. Eyes lifted. Conversations paused. People pretended not to stare while staring anyway. I asked her a simple question. "Why don't I belong here?" She hesitated. Just for a second. Then she said, "Because these seats are usually occupied by different passengers." Different. That was it. No rule. No policy. Just different. My chest tightened, not anger yet. Something colder. Something alert. "I paid for this seat," I said. "Please read the boarding pass." She didn't. Instead, she gestured toward the back of the plane. "You can find assistance there." My mother's hand tightened around my arm. "It's okay," she whispered. "We can move if we need to." That almost broke me. Because she was willing to disappear to keep everyone comfortable. Because she couldn't see what I could see. The looks. The quiet agreement. The way no one questioned her authority, but questioned my presence. "No," I said. "We're staying." Her jaw tightened. "I'll call a supervisor," she said. "Please do," I replied. She turned and walked away. The aisle erupted in low sound. Whispers. Shifting bodies. That hum people make when something uncomfortable is happening and they're relieved it's not them. No one asked to see my ticket. No one said a word. My mother sat very still. "They think I did something wrong, don't they?" she asked. I didn't answer. Because a man in uniform was already walking toward us. And the look on his face told me this wasn't about to end quietly. I share real moments like this. Quiet confrontations that happen in public, where dignity is tested and silence takes sides. The supervisor stopped beside our row. He didn't greet me, didn't introduce himself, didn't smile. He looked at the woman first. "What's the issue?" he asked. She answered immediately, like she'd been waiting for permission. "He's in the wrong seat," she said. "And he's refusing to move." Refusing. The supervisor turned to me. "Sir," he said, "can you step into the aisle for a moment?" "No," I replied. It wasn't loud. It wasn't aggressive. It was firm. That caught him off guard. He blinked once. "I'm not moving," I said. "I paid for this seat." A pause. The aisle behind us was packed now. People frozen mid-step. Bags half lifted. Everyone listening. The supervisor exhaled slowly. "May I see your boarding pass?" I handed it to him. He took it with 2 fingers, like it might be temporary. Like it might disappear. He read it. Once. Then again. His expression shifted, Not dramatically, just enough for me to notice. This seat is assigned to you, he said. The woman stiffened. But, she started. He lifted a hand, stopping her. Still, he didn't give the boarding pass back right away. Instead, he looked around the cabin. At the people watching. At the tension. Well, he said loudly. We're just verifying a few things. Verifying. That word again. Not apologizing. Not correcting her. Not acknowledging what had already been said. Just smoothing it over. My mother leaned toward me. Are we okay? She asked quietly. Her voice carried just enough to reach him. Yes, he said quickly. Everything is under control. Control. I noticed something then. He still hadn't handed back my boarding pass. It was a small thing, but it mattered. May I have my ticket back? I asked. He hesitated, then returned it. The woman crossed her arms. These seats are usually, she began again. The supervisor cut her off. That's enough, he said. But his tone wasn't firm. It was cautious, like he didn't want to upset her either. He turned to me again. Sir, he said, sometimes seating arrangements change. They didn't, I replied. Silence. The supervisor lowered his voice. We're just trying to make sure everyone is comfortable. Comfortable. I looked around. At the people who hadn't said anything. At the ones who wouldn't meet my eyes. At whose comfort? I asked. He didn't answer. My mother squeezed my hand. I can't hear them, she whispered. They're upset. They're watching, I said. She nodded slowly. I don't like being watched, she said. That did something to me. Because none of this was about the seat anymore. It was about dignity. About how easily it could be negotiated away. The supervisor cleared his throat. Sir, he said, if you'd just step aside. No, I said again. This time louder. The word echoed. The woman with the tablet shifted her weight. You're being difficult, she said. That's when someone laughed. Not a full laugh. Just a short breath of disbelief. It came from behind us. You're the one being difficult, a voice said. Everyone froze. The supervisor turned. The woman turned. I turned. It was a passenger. Middle-aged. Window seat. She hadn't moved this entire time. He showed you his boarding pass. The woman continued. You told him he didn't belong here. The aisle went silent. The supervisor swallowed. There seems to have been a misunderstanding, he said. The word hung there. Misunderstanding. No mention of belonging. No mention of different passengers. No mention of how this had unfolded in front of everyone. The woman with the tablet looked away. She didn't apologize. Didn't acknowledge me. She just stepped back into the galley area. Boarding resumed slowly. Awkwardly. People shuffled forward again. Pretended nothing had happened. My mother let out a long breath. I knew something felt wrong, she said. I just couldn't see it. I held her hand. I saw enough for both of us, I said. The supervisor lingered for a moment. Enjoy your flight, he said. Then he walked away. But the feeling didn't leave with him. The cabin felt different now. Heavy. Charged. People avoided looking at us. Like eye contact might admit something. A man across the aisle shook his head slightly. Not at me. At the situation. The woman who spoke up caught my eye. She gave a small nod. Nothing dramatic. Nothing heroic. Just acknowledgement. And that mattered. Because it meant someone had seen it too. But as the plane doors closed, I realized something else. This was over for them. But it wasn't over for me. Because what happened next, what was said after the doors closed, made this moment impossible to forget. If you've ever been made to feel out of place without a rule being broken, you'll understand why I tell these stories. The plane lifted gently. That familiar pull. The slight tilt. The quiet relief people feel when something delayed finally moves forward. Around us, bodies relaxed. Seatbelts clicked. Screens lit up. To everyone else, the moment had passed. To me, it hadn't. My mother adjusted in her seat, fingers brushing the armrest like she was remapping the space. We're in the air now, she said softly. That's good. Yes, I replied. But I didn't feel settled. Not yet. Because I'd learned something standing there in the aisle. When people don't get the outcome they want publicly, they look for privacy. 10 minutes after takeoff, the cabin lights dimmed slightly. The seatbelt sign stayed on. A cart rattled somewhere up front. Then I heard footsteps stop beside our row. I didn't look up right away. I already knew. Sir, the woman said quietly. Not loud enough for the row behind us. Not soft enough to be kind. I turned. It was her. Same tablet. Same tight smile. Different tone. We need to talk, she said. About what? She leaned closer, lowering her voice. There was a misunderstanding earlier, she said. But we still need to resolve it. Resolve it. I stayed seated. This was already resolved, I said. She shook her head slightly. No, she said. Not completely. My mother straightened. Is there a problem? She asked. The woman paused. Her eyes flicked to my mother's face. Then away. We're just checking in, she said. For safety. Safety. That word again. Always the cleanest excuse. What's safety issue? I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed to the armrest between us. This seat configuration isn't ideal, she said. It might be more comfortable if one of you relocated. Relocated. Not moved. Relocated. I'm not relocating, I said. Her jaw tightened. You're being uncooperative, she said. That word landed differently now. Earlier, it had meant in the way. Now it meant defiant. I'm being seated, I replied. She exhaled slowly, like she was counting. Sir, she said, I don't want to escalate this. I looked around. At the rows ahead of us. Behind us. People were pretending not to listen. Again. I don't either, I said. She straightened. Then help me help you, she said. I almost laughed. My mother leaned toward me. Malik, she whispered. What's happening? I turned to her. She wants us to move, I said plainly. Why? She asked. The woman answered before I could. Because this area is designated for passengers who require. She stopped herself. The pause was loud. A different level of service, she finished. Different. Again. My mother frowned slightly. I do require assistance, she said calmly. I'm blind. The woman blinked. Yes, she said, but what? I asked. She didn't finish the sentence. Instead, she straightened and said, I'll be back, and walked away. My mother exhaled slowly. That felt strange, she said. It was, I replied. She reached for my hand. I don't like how quiet she got, she said. Neither did I. Because quiet is where people rewrite the story. A few minutes later, a man appeared at the end of the aisle. Different uniform. Different posture. Authority, upgraded. He stopped beside us. I'm the lead attendant, he said. I understand there's been ongoing confusion. Confusion. That word was doing a lot of work today. There isn't, I said. We're seated correctly. He nodded, like he'd expected that answer. The concern, he said carefully, is passenger experience. Experience. I looked at him. Whose? I asked. He glanced around the cabin. Then back at me. We've had a complaint, he said. A complaint. Not from me. Not from my mother. About what? I asked. He hesitated. Disruption, he said. That's when it clicked. They weren't fixing a mistake anymore. They were managing optics. You mean my presence, I said. He didn't confirm it. He didn't deny it. He just said, we want everyone to feel at ease. My mother squeezed my hand. I don't feel at ease, she said quietly. The lead attendant turned toward her. I'm sorry, ma'am, he said. This isn't about you. It was. It always is. I leaned forward slightly. We're not moving, I said. The lead attendant nodded. Then I need to document this, he said. Document what? I asked. Your refusal, he said. Refusal. That word again. He pulled out a small device and tapped the screen. Around us, the cabin hummed. Normal. Unbothered. But I felt something shift. Because once something is documented, it stops being a misunderstanding. It becomes a record. And I knew whatever happened next wouldn't be accidental. The lead attendant stepped back. We'll continue this later, he said. Later. He walked away. My mother turned her face toward me. Are we in trouble? She asked. I swallowed. I don't know, I said honestly. But I did know one thing. This wasn't over. Because when the lights dimmed further and the cabin settled into cruise, I noticed something that confirmed it. Every time someone walked past our row, they looked at us. Not curious. Not concerned. Alert. Like we'd been labeled. And I realized then, this story wasn't about a seat. It was about what happens after you refuse to disappear. I tell these stories because what happens quietly, after the crowd moves on, is where the truth usually lives. The cabin settled into cruise. Lights dimmed further. Engines leveled out. People disappeared into screens, headphones, and sleep. But I stayed alert. Because once something is written down, it doesn't stay in the moment. It follows you. A drink cart rolled past. Stopped. Moved on. No one spoke to us. Not yet. My mother rested her hands in her lap. They've gone quiet, she said. That usually means something, I replied. She nodded. I've learned that too. About 20 minutes later, footsteps returned. Slower this time. Deliberate. The lead attendant stopped at our row again. He didn't lean in, didn't lower his voice. He spoke the way people do when they want to be overheard. "Sir," he said, "I need to confirm a few details." Passengers in the row across glanced up, then pretended not to listen. "Go ahead," I said. He checked his device. "Name?" he asked. I gave it. "Seat number?" I answered. "Traveling companion?" "My mother." He nodded. "And your reason for declining relocation?" "Declining." "I didn't decline relocation," I said. "I declined being removed from the seat I paid for." He typed. The sound of it bothered me. Each tap felt like it was shaping a version of me I didn't recognize. "You were informed of alternative seating," he said. "I was told I didn't belong," I replied. A pause. He looked up. "That's not what was documented," he said. There it was. Reality, adjusted. My mother turned toward him. "What does the record say?" she asked. He hesitated. "That you were offered assistance," he said, and declined. Offered assistance. Not pressured. Not singled out. Assisted. I leaned forward. "That's not accurate," I said. He nodded again. "Non-committal. If you'd like to file a concern after landing," he said, "the information will be available." After landing. Always later. Always removed from witnesses. A man across the aisle cleared his throat. "That's not how it happened," he said. The sound of his voice cut clean through the cabin. Heads turned. The lead attendant looked surprised. "You were there," the man continued. She told him he didn't belong. Silence. The lead attendant didn't respond immediately. Another voice joined in. "She did," a woman said from 2 rows back. I heard it too. The cabin shifted. Not loud, not chaotic, but present. The lead attendant straightened. "I appreciate your input," he said carefully. "But this matter is being handled." Handled. I felt my mother's hand tighten in mine. "They're helping," she whispered. "I don't feel helped." The lead attendant took a breath. "We need to keep the aisle clear," he said. Translation, stop talking. But something had already changed. Because now the moment wasn't private. It was shared. He looked back down at his device. "I'll make a note that other passengers recall the interaction differently," he said. Differently. Not incorrectly. Differently. Still, it was something. He stepped back. And for the first time since boarding, I felt the balance shift. Not because authority apologized, but because memory resisted being rewritten. The woman with the tablet didn't return. She avoided our section entirely. The lead attendant passed once more, but didn't stop. As the flight continued, small things happened. A drink offered without comment. A smile from a passenger. A quiet, "I'm sorry you went through that." Nothing dramatic, but steady. My mother leaned closer. "They're watching you now," she said. Not in the same way. She was right. The looks weren't sharp anymore. They were curious. Reflective. The plane began its descent an hour later. Seatbelts clicked again. Screens folded away. The lead attendant returned one last time. "I want you to know," he said quietly, "that your concerns are noted. Not apologized for. Not corrected. Noted." But his tone had changed. Less control. More caution. My mother nodded politely. "Thank you," she said. He walked away. As the wheels touched the runway, I felt the tension finally loosen its grip. But I also knew something else. This wasn't over when we stood up. Because the moment we entered the jet bridge, something unexpected happened. Someone stopped me. And what they said made the entire flight make sense. When stories are written down, witnesses are the only thing that keeps them honest. The doors opened. That rush of air. That subtle release people feel when a flight finally ends. Passengers stood. Reached for bags. Shifted back into themselves. I stayed seated until the aisle cleared. My mother waited for me to stand first. "I'll follow your lead," she said. We stepped into the aisle together. Slow. Careful. No one rushed us. Not now. As we moved toward the exit, someone touched my arm. Light. Deliberate. I turned. It was the woman who had spoken up earlier. The one from the window seat. She waited until the people behind us passed. "I just wanted to say something," she said. Her voice was low. "Private. I heard what she said to you," she continued. Back when boarding stopped. I nodded. I've been thinking about it the entire flight, she said. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She took a breath. I should have spoken sooner, she said. But I didn't know if it was my place. That word again. Place. My mother turned toward her. Thank you for saying something at all, she said gently. The woman swallowed. I've seen that look before, she said, looking at me. The one where people decide you don't belong. I felt something settle in my chest. Not anger. Not relief. Recognition. They try to make it sound procedural, she said. But it never is. No, it never is. She nodded once. I hope you're okay, she said. Then she stepped back into the stream of passengers and disappeared. We walked down the jet bridge in silence. The hum of the terminal replaced the engine noise. My mother squeezed my hand. People think blindness means I miss things, she said. But I hear tone. I feel hesitation. I nodded. I know. They weren't asking, she said. They were deciding. Yes, I replied. We reached the terminal. Life continued. Announcements echoed. Wheels rolled. No one knew what had happened in the air. That's how it usually goes. Moments like that don't leave marks. They leave questions. As we waited for our connecting gate, my mother spoke again. You didn't move, she said. No, I replied. I'm glad, she said. Not because it was easy, but because it mattered. I thought about that. About how small the moment had been. A sentence. A pause. A word like belong. And how heavy it had felt. I thought about how easily it could have ended differently. If I'd stood. If I'd apologized for something I hadn't done. If I'd disappeared. I looked around the terminal. At people passing through spaces that weren't built for them. At the quiet calculations happening everywhere. Belonging. Permission. Silence. I'm telling this story because it didn't end with an apology. It didn't end with justice. It ended with awareness. And sometimes, that's the part people need to hear. Because not every moment of exclusion is loud. Most of them are calm, polite, procedural, and that's what makes them dangerous. My mother rested her head briefly against my shoulder. You handled it with dignity, she said. I smiled. I learned from you, I replied. We stood and walked toward our gate. Just two people moving forward. Unmoved, unremoved, still here. If you've ever been quietly told you didn't belong, these stories are for you. More true stories coming. Subscribe so you don't walk alone.